Welcome to our strategy talk, Taking Integration to the Next Level. My name is Michael Ameling and with me is Philipp Herzig. We will jointly give you an update on SAP's integration strategy. In the beginning, we will give a short recap on our integration strategy and then deep dive into our integrated suite. We will outline the suite qualities which give the value to our customers and show you a demo example about an end-to-end business process. Afterwards, we will relate it to our business technology platform and then give you also some additional guidance with our enterprise architects. Let's start with our integration strategy. You may know that SAP has acquired certain companies. For example, SuccessFactors for the human capital management or Concur for travel management. Unfortunately, these acquisitions come with some challenges. You may know that there is a certain different user experience along these different applications, that integration might be sometimes complex, and that they are built on different stacks. Now what we said is we need to deliver an integrated and intelligent suite, meaning end-to-end business processes. In order to do so, we said we need to focus on 4 different customer requirements. The first thing is, if we want to deliver such end-to-end business processes, we need to focus on extensibility and building an ecosystem for our partners. Concrete, it means if we have these end-to-end business processes, that we can also extend them to the customer's needs. Secondly, it's about data to value. We want to give analytical insights, have a search, or even reuse artificial intelligence and other technologies like robotic process automation and machine learning. Thirdly, it's about integration. It's about SAP to SAP integration, so basically putting the products together and deliver a seamless user experience. But it's also about openness. We know that there are hybrid scenarios. We know that there are legacy systems. So we need to have a platform where partners and customers can integrate with. And last, not to forget, it's also about development, agility and speed. So not a platform which only drives TCO. It's also that cloud native developers, citizen developers can build on our platform. This applies for SAP internally as well as for partners and customers. Now let's dive into the integration part. Customers came to us and said, what we need from SAP is an aligned domain model, APIs that are harmonized, consistent. We need to access events to extend our scenarios. Secondly, they ask for a seamless user experience. It's a look and feel, so basically how does buttons, colors, font size, but also navigation patterns underneath. Thirdly, it's an out-of-the-box integration. I talked about end-to-end business processes, so it's not that we have different siloed applications. We need to deliver them out of the box with integrated and or even with content on top. Third point is the open integration. I mentioned already that we need to be able to integrate legacy systems, third-party systems and partner systems, and not to forget security. Security is key here, and to give a very simple example, customer expects that they can use one user, identify, use single sign-on, and even have the right authorization out of the box so that they can execute along the value chain and along these end-to-end business processes. Now, how does it look like concrete? Last year, we introduced 4 end-to-end business processes. This is lead to cash, design to operate, source to pay, and recruit to retire. We said that we will deliver an intelligent enterprise along these 4 major scenarios. In order to do so, we said that we will deliver an intelligent suite which comes with certain requirements. So exactly the points, the customer requirements which I mentioned beforehand, we will deliver with so-called suite qualities. It's about user experience, where we apply and along these scenarios exactly implement the Fiori design guidelines. It's that we integrate an identity service along all applications which are used in these scenarios to deliver a unified identity management. We are aligning all master data objects, transactional data, and configuration data with one domain model and take sure that this is integrated for data replication, but also that it's used for APIs which we deliver for integration. We take care of analytics, we deliver in one inbox, and of course, since we are in a cloud environment, that we can do a coordinated lifecycle management. Now you may ask, how does this look like? This is why we also implemented so-called reference architecture or process blueprints. So if you go on api.sap.com, you will find these scenarios and can look exactly what you need to become an intelligent enterprise. For further information, we rolled out an integration strategy paper in the beginning of this year. It gives you an overview of the intelligent suite. It shows how we use the suite qualities to deliver an intelligent suite and how it's built on our business technology platform and even integrates with SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite. Now we know it's not only the products and the deliveries what you are keen on, it's also about the roadmap, so to ensure investments. So within this paper you will see also some deadlines along these suite qualities. And over the summer we rolled out an additional paper to see how we made progress. Now it's not that we are finished with that. So one key takeaway also here is we will continue this activity. There will be further suite qualities. We know that we are not finished with user experience, so it's definitely more to come and we will evolve this over time. But let's give a concrete example, and here let me hand over to Philipp.
Thanks a lot, Michael. And as you just said, let's take one specific example from those 4 processes, specifically recruit to retire, to see how it helps HR professionals to actually get their job done across our solutions. But before we take a look at this demo, let's recap what is really important for an HR leader, for an HR professional, in particular in those unprecedented times we are facing today when it comes to workforce management, of course, our internal employees as well as external ones. HR leaders want to get visibility into their total workforce and, of course, the financial impact on the business. They want to have seamless HR processes for business continuity and remote work, given our very special situation that we are all together in those very special times. And at the same time, it's all about the employee experience and the engagement, to drive engagement and productivity. At the end of the day, what HR leaders want to do is to put people at the center of the enterprise. And what we really need is an integrated intelligent enterprise process that supports the end-to-end HR process out of the box. So what we did, when you look at an overall enterprise, we structured, as Michael already outlined, those into those 4 processes: lead to cash, coming from the front office, design to operate, which is a manufacturing supply chain. And then, of course, there are the supporting processes like recruit to retire to take care of the workforce. And what we actually did, you may remember that in the past, the same process may have been called total workforce management. Today, recruit to retire subsumes 3 main processes. It's hire to retire, which manages the lifecycle of an internal worker end to end. It is also including travel to reimburse. So whenever workers are traveling or doing expense management, it's also subsumed under recruit to retire today. And finally, external workforce management. So whenever you are engaging with third parties, with other suppliers, with temporary contingent workers to expand your workforce in case you need it the most. And actually, the business applications supporting those processes are SAP SuccessFactors, SAP S/4HANA Cloud, SAP Concur, Fieldglass, and Ariba. So let's dive deeper into a process that we call external workforce management. So where we can really end-to-end across SAP SuccessFactors, Fieldglass, and S/4HANA, cloud and on-prem, can actually manage the entire life cycle of an employee. And what we do today from a data integration perspective is 3 main things. One, you need to get the cost centers or the projects, like the work breakdown structures, from S/4HANA Cloud into SuccessFactors or into Fieldglass. So, for example, in Fieldglass, that you can book your billable hours on a certain cost accounting structure. Of course, there's also an exchange of HR organizational units or job classifications that need to be exchanged, where SAP SuccessFactors is actually the leading system, and it needs to go into Fieldglass. And then finally, of course, the workers themselves, the master data, where again SuccessFactors is in there, which also needs to replicate this into S/4HANA to reconcile against the downstream processes. What is important today, those are all aligned of what Michael has called the one domain model. This is the recent innovation, and we say there is actually no mapping necessary. Those pieces work out of the box because we now, for those entities, actually have an aligned data model that all those solutions participating in the process understand out of the box. So there's a seamless integration with respect to syntax and semantics. There are still also some where we are working on this one domain model. For example, the purchasing organization or the plan from S/4HANA Cloud remains to be replicated, for example, over Cloud Platform Integration Suite. But we plan to actually also enable those in the future via the one domain model approach. And besides, of course, the main organizational or business-related entities in our domain, we of course also have the more technical things. For example, when a worker is created, he or she should be, of course, automatically also be able to log in into all those solutions, being authenticable against those solutions out of the box as well. And when you log in, for example, as a manager or as an employee, all the authorizations, all the business roles should apply equally across those solutions. We also accomplished this. So let me show you really a complex scenario that we actually, and this is no demoware, that we have just released with S/4HANA Cloud and SuccessFactors in 2011, just a month ago, in a real-life scenario. For this demo, let's assume I'm Jeff. I'm actually in a big manufacturing plant, a production director. And I have an urgent demand in my production plan for further people because demand is just increasingly high on my products. And I intend to hire a production oversight manager to help me overseeing my entire production. And I believe, because demand is just temporary, to hire actually an external worker. Now, directly from within SuccessFactors, I can now jump directly into SAP Field Class to create an external job posting where actually all the data from the SuccessFactors system has been taken over already. Furthermore, inside Field Class, of course, I want to enrich this job posting with specific data, what I estimate, for example, how many hours this worker should work, what the average rate might be, to come up with a total spend for internal approval. So I continue here and conclude this job posting that can be actually sent to all my suppliers. So I submit this into the system. And now let's actually travel a little bit in time. A couple of suppliers actually applied for this position and submitted their job seekers to this job posting. In fact, 2 people actually have been sent here, which is Charles and Leo. So let's compare them inside Field Glass side by side and compare them. And what we can see is that Leo actually has a 2-star rating for 43,000 euros approximately, and 27,000 euros that Charles, but with a 5-star rating actually. So of course I would typically conduct an interview, but this sounds good and I go ahead with the hiring. Now, once we have selected the right candidate, we also need to negotiate with the supplier what is actually the statement of work and what we expect out of this engagement. So therefore, I create a work order with that supplier that includes all the legal details to actually get the work started. So I submit this, and once the work order is actually completed, again traveling in time and having all of the approvals in place, we also create, with the right amount, the corresponding purchase order now inside the S/4HANA system, all out of the box. So here you can see actually the standard PO with a net order value of 27,000 euro directly in the system, and you can also see for whom this actually applies. Now, once this is in there and everything has been finalized, I need to activate actually this work order. Upon activation, and I can make here a final check if everything is correct from my perspective, I can activate this, which actually will send now automatically an email towards Charles so that he is able to log into the system later on to record his hours. What also happens is that Charles' employee master record is actually also populated towards S/4HANA Cloud as well as SAP SuccessFactors, so that you can manage also Charles from those systems as well or reconcile data against Charles. Now let's assume Charles has just completed his first working week and wants to record his time. So he logs into Fieldglass and records hours for actually the various days of that first working week and submits this to the system. Of course, Jeff, as the production director, needs now to approve this timesheet. And if he does, automatically a service entry sheet is created in S/4HANA with 656 euros, because this corresponds actually to the worked hours and is actually reconciled against the original purchase order of 27K in this case. Now, of course, there's one day where you need to, of course, for Charles, need to create an invoice, so because you need to pay him, right? And of course, a supplier to receive the money for this. So now there is again in Fieldglass the possibility to actually create this invoice, which is basically the PDF representation of that invoice. I can do a final check, see the stated amount, taxes, of course, and adjustments that may apply. And I approve this. And upon this approval, again out of Fieldglass, fully integrated, the corresponding supplier invoice is actually also created inside the S/4HANA system. So here with a gross amount now of 780, and if I click on this, it actually shows me this exactly corresponds again to the amount for this purchasing document that is also included here, and of course the tax rate that applies. Finally, what is very important, thanks to the integration, as I said, the employee master is also replicated to SuccessFactors. So going forward, until actually Charles may leave again, or maybe the engagement is over, Jeff can continue managing Charles' master data directly from within SuccessFactors going forward. So this actually concludes quite frankly speaking, very complex scenarios that we, of course, cut it down due to the various complexities and that we simplified here and there. Otherwise, the process would run longer than this session. But you can just see from this experience how seamless actually all the data is meanwhile integrated thanks to the one domain model, thanks to the security. You also have seen improvements converging the user experience, adopting Fiori design guidelines more and more. So to really make it possible that such a seamless process, despite three main solutions and products being involved, which are in itself already complex, to really map it to an end-to-end business process, to make it really an exceptional workforce experience for, in this case, the external workers, but also all the associated parties that are part and participate under this process. And we have been taking now in 2020 a big step forward with those integrations. But very clearly, we're not stopping here. As Michael already outlined, this is just the beginning, and we are, as SAP, committed to further improve over the next years very similar scenarios across the intelligent enterprise in 2021. And with this, I'd like to hand over Michael to talk a bit about the underpinnings with the business technology platform.
Thank you, Philipp. With this, let me come to the business technology platform, which is the foundation, and let's relate it how it comes to the intelligent suite in the intelligent enterprise. As we outlined in the beginning, to deliver the intelligent enterprise, the intelligent suite, and also industry cloud, we need one common foundation, which is the business technology platform. Philipp mentioned about the integration of master data distribution. He mentioned about identity services. So these are capabilities which must come out of the box of an according platform. With the business technology platform, we on the one hand focus on four major pillars. So it's about the database and data management. So you know that HANA Cloud are here, of course, the key pillars for the data management. We have the analytics part, where we have SAP Analytics Cloud, which we recently embedded, for example, in SuccessFactors or S/4HANA. We have the application and development integration. This is exactly where we have these according services to deliver an integration replication of master data or such an identity service. And not to forget about the intelligent technologies which we use to bring the best value along these end-to-end business processes. So even more detailed, it means that we leverage from certain capabilities of the platform to ensure a tight integration into our applications. Now, since we know it's not a cloud-only environment which you are tackling, and we heard a lot of feedback that how do you answer this now to our hybrid landscape? How do you engage with the on-premise landscapes? Now, with that, we actually want to outline also on a SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite. This is our answer how you can integrate SAP systems, legacy systems, non-SAP systems, third-party systems and the like. What does it mean in detail? You see on the left side all the applications which we want to connect to. Now in order to do this, we need APIs and events. If you go again on api.sap.com, you will find a unified documentation of all available APIs. We just recently even published APIs from S/4HANA on-premise, so that you have one entry point to access those. You might also have heard of SAP Graph. This is a harmonized access layer to the one domain model, so to basically one language of APIs that you can access your sales order, your workforce person and the like. On top, you will see that there's enterprise messaging for eventing. We have serverless runtimes and the open connectors, which gives you the ability to connect already to such systems. Now this is the technology side of the house. A lot of customers also approached us, now how do I do this? There's A2A integration, B2B integration and the like. So we said we need to give even further guidance, not only technology, it's also something where we need to have a methodology behind. With that, let me come to some integration guidance. What we developed is an SAP Integration Solution Advisory methodology. It's basically a framework that you can use to assess your integration strategy, to look what you need in your on-premise, your hybrid or your cloud environment, how to integrate, how to structure this, and then decide best which technology you need, may it be from the integration suite, sub-data intelligence and other solutions. In addition, in the beginning we introduced the integration strategy paper, so that's the first reading you might go into to see what we are delivering along the intelligent enterprise. Now what we are going to release even on top is an updated CIO guide. It gives you a high-level summary how to do integration, architecture and so on. And even further down, we got a lot of feedback how to do this in detail, which technology to choose. Therefore, we are also publishing an integration architecture guide. It's mainly for enterprise architects to get a deep dive on integration patterns, on technology, with a strong focus on SAP Integration Suite and SAP Data Intelligence. With this, you have a lot of material which you can dive into and also which helps you to decide on the best integration and even extend your end-to-end scenarios. With this, we are already finished, and let me outline shortly a few sessions which might be also in your interest. So we have an architecture vision on the business technology platform. We have a session on the business processes. We have also further detailed sessions on one domain model to show how this works from the technical side as well as from the integration along the end-to-end business processes. We can show you more details on the suite qualities and not to forget a roadmap, how does this look on the timeline. With that, a big thanks from Philipp on my side and see you soon.